I knew I could look like Chris Bumstead if I just summoned on the powers of Gandalf, Harry Potter, and the entire wizarding world to become a magical Jack. Yo, quick hitters before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video because I don't want to let it get too long. Number one, I took a lot of this from the Zach Taylander video. He was at Wadapalooza. He didn't say hi to me. I wish he would have said hi to me because I like the dude and I've watched a lot of his stuff. He does a lot of content on stuff like this. He knows what he's talking about. He's the guy who produced the Derek video where he was out in the Liver King for using performance-enhancing drugs. He does the interviews well. He has Natty or Nots, I think. And he's addressing a video put up by one of our favorite coaches in the space, Mr. Ben Bergeron, and why nobody in CrossFit is using performance-enhancing drugs. Of course, I would like to give my opinion on that. He references an article from the Barbell Spin where there's something that I need to bring up about that, which is that just because they tested negative one time actually tells you that it's just a stupid test. It doesn't tell you that they're not using anything. Well, you know, it's better than not doing anything at all. Just having one test at some point during an off season doesn't tell you shit. It tells you that they weren't using anything at that time, or maybe they weren't testing for the stuff that they're possibly using at that time. Well, I'm not trying to insinuate that anyone on that list in particular is using stuff. It's just an ass around backwards way of trying to say, oh, look, we're the greatest people on earth. We're all natural. They're actually, by doing this, making themselves look stupid. If you can't catch people in the Olympics by doing testing, what is it, every other month, which I've addressed from the Clarence Kennedy video, USADA, he doesn't compete at the level of the Olympics because he doesn't want to compete against people who are not natural. He's openly using performance-enhancing drugs in the United States or in Canada. In Canada, he's using performance-enhancing drugs. And he doesn't trust, and he gives you the reasons why he doesn't trust that USADA isn't being able to keep up with the people who are using shit at the level of the Olympics. So why is it that people can say that the one test used the one time at some point during an off-season competition of CrossFitters is going to deem them being not dirty? Are you out of your mind? That is even if they were looking for the right stuff at that time. Let's start hearing from Mr. Ben Bergeron about why no one in CrossFit uses performance-enhancing drugs.
CrossFit Games athletes have healthy bodies.
Are you kidding me? Have you taken the level one? Have you ever seen Wellness Sickness and where the elite athletes fall on that?
So if you start with this when you're 75, what I can say to you is at 85, you'll have better functionality and better health than you do right now. I can say that with confidence if you follow our program. Now for an athlete that's competing to try to go to the CrossFit Games, they don't have that luxury and that's not their goals. That's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to get as fit as they possibly can for the Open in March. This is the same thing if you're playing football. We're gonna try and get as good as we possibly can before the season starts. That's why preseason training is so intense. And we're trying to get as good as we can for Sunday, and then we gotta get as good as we can again for next Sunday. And with Sunday's games are really destructive and hard. They beat the body down. That's why the average NFL career is 3.5 years. 3.5 years before you're washed up, and then that career, that 3.5 year career, takes 5 to 7 years off of your life. Literally,
at least.
No, that's a fact. It's actually. I'm not saying it hypothetically. It's a research thing. It takes 5 to 7 years off your life if you play in the NFL. Wow. What those guys are doing in CrossFit might be closer to the NFL than what we're doing inside the gym here. It's literally apples and oranges. It's two different things. I get it. It looks like the same thing because they're doing thrusters and we're doing thrusters. I get it because they do Fran and we do Fran. What they are doing is they are training for the CrossFit Games, which is nothing any of us ever do in our lifetime. If you ask me, where are the Games athletes going to be in 20, 30, 40, 50 years? I have no idea. That's the question, the mystery to me. Those guys are training at a level that we've never seen before. I'm going to go on record saying this. No athletes, and I know this because I've trained a few from other sports and I've trained athletes in the sport at the highest level. I don't believe that there is an athletes in other sports that train at the level that high CrossFit level athletes do. From a 360-degree encompassing recovery training, I think that they are investing their lives into it more than anybody else.
Yeah.
That's why the average NFL career is 3.5 years. 3.5 years before you're washed up, and then that career, that 3.5 year career, takes 5 to 7 years off of your life. Literally.
At least.
No, that's a fact. It's actually. I'm not saying hypothetically. It's a research thing. It takes 5 to 7 years off your life if you play in the NFL.
I believe that's in the level one. However, I forget. Who are your elite athletes anymore? maybe yours are healthy.
What most people do when they see those athletes is go, no way. You can't look like that Adonis. You can't look like that type of a fitness model without being unhealthy, without taking performance enhancing drugs. I've seen firsthand that you can.
Most people? I'm not sure the people that you're talking to have heard from, but I put up plenty of videos in relation to performance-enhancing drugs, Mr. Bergeron. I'll let you know that the comments section is rather 50-50. 50% of them don't say that there's no way that you can look like that. And to be entirely honest, being the person who puts these up in our space, I don't even say that it's impossible. I say that certain things aren't possible, but not just that. Andrew, you don't know. You've never coached the CrossFit Games champion. I also never had a mass exodus of CrossFit Games athletes. You can believe me, because I know. Haven't you ever heard the saying, in one of your 10,000 books that you've read, if you claim to be the expert in something, that means that you're the expert in nothing. If you're the smartest person in the room, run away from that person. Hypocrite or Duran.
What these guys are doing is really new. It's been a decade and a half.
15 years. It's like when people say that my baby's 84 months old. It's like, oh, fuck, what is that? 2 years-ish? A decade and a half.
Of people training this way, constantly varied function movements at high intensity, there's a magic to that.
Yes. Yes. Yes! I knew I could look like Chris Bumstead if I just summoned on the powers of Gandalf, Harry Potter, and the entire wizarding world to become a magical jack motherfucker. Yeah, you see this? Everyone thinks California Horror Mountains. Like, no. Wingardium Leviosa and he turns into a freaking brick shithouse. Magic? You're gonna use magic?
We're talking about practice, man.
To try to say that the people that you've worked with are natural athletes? What?
You know, when you train for bodybuilding, you create hypertrophy, muscle growth. When you train for endurance events, you develop your cardiovascular system, amongst other things.
This reminds me of the video I saw where he was training Katrin David's daughter to do muscle-ups and pegboard ascents without ever doing muscle-ups or pegboard ascents. We understand what your weakness is, and we're going to do everything that we can to get better at that weakness without ever doing the thing that you're bad at. Oh, well, here's the thing. It's like if you want to be a bodybuilder, you do bodybuilding. Endurance runners do endurance running. I'm Ben Bergeron.
The really cool thing about what happens when you do resistance training at a high heart rate is you elicit a very powerful hormonal response.
I thought it was magic. A magical leopleurodon.
Oh God, what is that?
It's a leopleurodon, Charlie. A magical leopleurodon.
And also, considering it's so new, what data have you ever seen anywhere that actually tells you that there's something that's going to make you look like a god because you've done it this way? Don't get me wrong, been there, done that. As soon as you're done talking, I'm going to show a couple of the pictures of myself at different points in my CrossFit career and what I looked like and how I felt in relation to this point in time where I am indeed using performance-enhancing drugs. I got some sort of data behind the shit that I'm saying, and you're just out here saying, look at this. It's either magical or it's never been done before. How dare you say that we can't look like this? You can actually make the argument the other way just as easily. It's so young. I mean, shit, we just saw the Liver King was so young. Maybe it is actually the ancestral tenets that made him look that way. People want to say that they got duped by that, and those guys are freaking idiots too.
That coupled with taking lifts to failure gets you jacked.
Taking lifts to failure gets you jacked. I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Taking lifts to failure gets you jacked. Taking lifts to failure gets you jacked. It sounds good, because in a way you're right. But what I envision is a snatch ladder. CrossFit Games, they're all taking it to failure. One of your athletes ended up hurting their elbow pretty badly taking that lift to failure. Really healthy, actually, when you put it that way. I could agree with maybe a 20 rep back squat taking that to failure might get you jacked. I understand possibly the rabbit hole your brain was going down, which is if you take a 30-pound wall ball and go to failure, that might make you jacked. But I don't think there's very much behind doing Fran. Fran might not put many people to failure, but again, taking things to failure gets everybody jacked. That's just time under tension. That's bodybuilding. It really doesn't have anything to do with a high heart rate. I mean, maybe that'll make you leaner? Am I looking too deep into what he said right here? Because it just doesn't make any sense to me what you're trying to say. It could. Maybe that's why it's good for Instagram. I'm not going to give you that much credit though. I just don't think you know what you're talking about.
Not only is it like the bodybuilding thing of like, I'm going to create hypertrophy and then I'm going to cut and just like starve myself. This gets to that aesthetic in a healthy way. That's a healthy body.
This is going to be a good point for me to show a couple of pictures of the progress that I've made over the lifespan of my CrossFit career. I think that my best physique naturally was somewhere around the time where I actually wasn't doing all that much training. There's a couple of points that I'm going to point to. One of them, I was doing a strict muscle up. I'm reaching up to grab a set of rings, and as I pull myself up there, I think that I look freaking great. And this is early on, maybe 2017. I weighed about 190, 194 pounds. I was strong as shit. I was deadlifting in the upper 500s, squatting in the upper 400s, had a 340 pound clean and jerk, 285 pound snatch. And while I was really strong, I chalk it up to that I wasn't doing enough training to get myself conditioned enough to compete in the sport that is very turnover based. How many repetitions can you fit in this amount of time against your competition while being able to keep up with the weightlifting that has to ensue? To which I went down the rabbit hole of doing quite a bit of conditioning. I would do these hour and a half, 2 hour long assault bike intervals 2 times a week. I would do that in conjunction with my typical CrossFit training because I would hear things in the sport like Matt Fraser only does the machines. He rode 5,000 meters a day. He would do all of this biking. Tia Toomey, same shit. Machines, 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 all the conditioning in the world. And then what ended up happening is I got fucking shredded. There's a picture of me at an event. I got a dumbbell over my head and I can see every single notch in my stomach. It's the leanest I've ever been. I look emaciated, whatever the one is where you look like you're freaking starving to death. At that point in time, I was in the mid to low 180s. My lifts had come down a little bit because I wasn't quite as heavy. And what I found at that point was it was hard to gain some of that muscle back. That was until I was no longer coaching. And I chalk that up to the fact that I sat in this chair quite a bit. As a CrossFit affiliate coach, there was a lot of time spent on your feet. They call it NEAT. What is your NEAT? Non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It's just the stuff that you're doing while you're not exercising. And when you are a CrossFit coach, you're on your feet most of the day. When I was no longer the owner of the CrossFit affiliate and I was doing it on my own accord in the garage at other people's houses, doing the personal training that I've been doing for the past 2 or 3 years, I started to gain some mass. Because I was either coaching, sitting, or exercising, or sleeping, or eating. And the coaching that I was doing wasn't upwards of 20 people any longer. It was just one person. So I would just stand there like a lawn gnome, coaching. Show something here or there, but it's very different than what happens when you coach 20 people, up, down, around, doing everything all the time. And then I did a competition, which I just saw a picture of myself of from the other day. It's the circus. It was pointed out to me by Travis Bellinghouse from Vindicate that he's going to be going to the circus this weekend, which is a competition in Des Moines, Iowa, I believe, which I competed with my buddy Dylan in 2021. I think we took second place at that competition, and there's a picture of the 2 of us, and I looked pretty good. I would say that my training was about as on point as it had ever been. I was doing nowhere near as much conditioning as I was in the year 2017, 2018. My body weight was back up to about that 190, 194 spot. My lifts were back up. I was stronger again. And then, of course, there's present day Andrew, where he's a giant fucking house of a human. I've weighed as much as 206 recently. I kind of walk around every single day at 202. Note that those are 8 to 15 pounds heavier than I've mentioned at any other point in this video. And that's attributed to the testosterone replacement therapy that I've been doing. I had to have heard a dozen times at Wadapalooza where the person mentioned in the beginning of this video, Zach T-Lander, was also at, that I'm bigger in person than you would think. It's a opposite of a compliment, I think. Because the ultimate compliment, as stated in Jason CF Media's intro video talking about the exact same list of athletes.
If you're being told you must be on performance-enhancing drugs, or you couldn't look the way you do or perform the way you do, and you're not on them, well, that has to be the ultimate fitness compliment.
Says that it's the ultimate compliment when someone says that you look like you're on performance-enhancing drugs. Now, the person that is sitting here and is on them, I guess it's a good thing. You're bigger in person. Oh, cool. It's better than being smaller in person. But the reason I showed all those pictures is because this is what it looked like in 2016. This is what it looked like in 2018. And this is what it looked like when you're taking performance-enhancing drugs. These are the reasons for those things. And if you've watched any of my content, I put out videos on athletes that I do believe are on performance-enhancing drugs, and it's about the ebbs and flows in the physique. Note that my changes were years apart. It was 2016, 2018, 2020, 21, and then 2022. Where the fuck did that come from? The same place that it would come from if I were to just stop using everything. And actually, it's probably a good point for me to reference a little thing right here where we talked with Derek. I don't have contact with Derek More Plates, More Dates. I've always wanted him to do something on CrossFitters, but now I just want him to do something at all. Because he doesn't put up videos anymore. I really miss having the daily Derek videos. But he says that CrossFitters are likely not using the testosterones of the world while also stating that if he were to be using them, it'd be hard to find it, which is what I've stated in the past, due to either a low dosage or using a short half-life ester of testosterone. They're likely using EPO, peptides, or something that we don't even know about, which is the thing that I always say. Like, there's something out there that some people have. And when I say some people, I mean some people. Unlike what Ben Bergeron's saying, like there's a freaking wizard in the forest, giving CrossFit athletes some powers, that wizard might be a pharmacist, giving some people access to some things which are undetectable. How fucking stupid is it to hear one of the best CrossFit coaches in the space trying to say that this is not something that's out there? It decreases your credibility, dude. It doesn't increase it by trying to say, oh, I know athletes. I love all the athletes. All the athletes are great.
Nobody's stronger than me.
Nobody has better toys than I do.
There's nobody bigger or better at the military than I am.
Nobody loves the Bible more than I do.
And no, it's not as easy as just look at them.
What most people do when they see those athletes is go, no way.
Unless it is. Not in that moment, at other moments, as you'll have seen through other of my videos. But yeah, I couldn't pass up on the opportunity to try to just shove it into Bergeron a little bit. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Go watch the Zach Taylander video. One of these days I'll be cool enough to hang out with Zach myself. But right now he's hanging out with Mr. Craig Ritchie, the Buttery Bros, Matt Fraser. Can't blame him. They got more followers than I do. Andrew Hitler, out.